to explore how to successfully navigate our way into the Zambian market. We do encounter barriers. If there are no barriers, what are the incentives for people to join the Zambian market, and what do they meet? And we'll be talking to an expert panel of 3 and having a light conversation about what are the pros and cons and their experiences with partnerships in Zambia. My name is Flora Ismail-Tibazaro. I'm Program Director for the Southern African Innovation Support Program, and I'll be moderating the panel. I'm going to ask each and every one of them to introduce themselves in a moment, and starting with ladies first, but gentlemen before. So I'll start with Musenga.
My name is Musenga Silwawa. I'm a director of Sport Agro Technologies. My involvement with SAIS started when I collaborated with Dr. Hilonga of Tanzania with his nano-filter water project. It's about the transfer of the nano-water filter technology to Zambia from Tanzania. It's about filtration of water.
Thank you, Musenga. I'll move on to the next gentleman on our panel. That's Benjamin War.
I'm Dr. Benjamin War. I'm an ecological economist and soil scientist, and for the past 10 years, an entrepreneur in Zambia. I operate Better World Energy Limited, which is an innovation hub, and our principal service offering at the moment is Mtaka, Soil Health Testing and Advisory, which is Zambia's first independent soil testing laboratory dedicated to small farmers. And that was made operational thanks to funding from SAIS, Southern Africa Innovation Support Program. And that helped us to design a service that was suitable for the base of the pyramid, the last mile, or as we call it, the first mile.
And our only lady on the panel, that's Nambula. Over to you.
My name is Nambula Kachumi, and I am the Executive Director for the Women's Entrepreneurship Access Center in Zambia. WEAC is basically a center that provides women entrepreneurs with the various tools, resources, knowledge, and networks to advance their business development. So our major focus area is to address gender barriers to entrepreneurship and support entrepreneurial activity across various sectors, basically targeting majority female-owned businesses in Zambia. And WEAC has been working, to support and implement the Africa Food 360 Accelerator Program in partnership with the Southern African Innovation Support Program, which is basically a project that is looking to support activity as well as value chain development within the agriculture sector in Zambia.
I'll start off with you, Nambula. So if you can briefly just talk about the Africa Food 360, what is it about, and how has the project, what are the project's main achievements in the Zambian market?
Right, thank you, Flora. So the Africa Food 360 project was launched in 2019 with support from the Southern African Innovation Support Program. The project is basically an inclusive innovation project that is looking to support business acceleration and market development, targeting majority female-owned agricultural-based enterprises in order to help them to scale their innovations and also support how they engage with outgrower communities. So the project itself is centered around a social enterprise model, focusing on supporting, female agro processors who are working in very low resource constrained markets, working basically with the bottom of the pyramid, and also supporting, contract farming and helping to develop a model that puts contract farming and outgrower networks into effect. And so far, we have seen a lot of traction amongst the companies that have been involved in the 9-month accelerator program, including them being able to enter new markets, develop their products, and also devise contract models or rather outgrower systems that have been effective in terms of enhancing the productive capacity of rural outgrower communities. We've also seen a lot of traction in terms of supporting capital raising for these businesses that have been on the accelerator program. they've increased their brand visibility, which has positioned them better to develop their markets, to enter into new products, and also basically take advantage of the agricultural and economic landscape in the country. We have also seen a number of developments, in terms of sustainable agriculture, as the Accelerator program has provided them opportunities to networking, to mentorship, as well as access to some of the business opportunities that help them to enhance their retail network.
Thank you, Nambula. So just to get a better grip on the actual entry, because now you talk more about the agripreneurs that have benefited from Zambia. How has the partnerships with Zimbabwe and Namibia worked? What have you seen as being opportunistic for Namibian entrepreneurs, agripreneurs, to enter the Zambian market? Could you highlight a little bit on that?
Right. I think some of the opportunities that we've seen really point to the kind of diversity that has been identified, especially in very specific agricultural subsectors. When you look at, for example, how the soya production has advanced in Zambia, production has increased by 68% in Zambia, but I think there's also very little value addition that is happening. So most of the soya beans is being produced in its raw form, but we have seen opportunities where Zambian female agripreneurs are looking outwardly through value addition to see how some of these products can get into, Namibian markets, Zimbabwean markets. And through the program, they've explored opportunities for, trade opportunities, for example, export opportunities, which also comes with the requirement for standardization, capacity, and also being able, to satisfy some of the requirements that come with exporting finished products. We've also seen a lot of opportunities, for example, in the fisheries sector. And so through the peer learning and the regional exchange program that is happening between the Zambian female agripreneurs and the Accelerator program and those in Namibia, we've seen opportunities where there's potential exchange of non-traditional export commodities, which is a very, very positive move.
But I'll move on now to Benjamin and just unpack for us a little bit, what is the Ntaka Hyperlocal Soil Health Advisory Project? What was it about, and what were the main achievements for the Zambian market?
Thank you, Flora. So the Ntaka Hyperlocal Soil Service ended up being called the Ntaka Soil Health Testing and Advisory Service. And our objective was to make a service that was affordable, accessible, and critically understandable for our clients, those being small farmer communities who are often highly fragmented, both spatially, but also in terms of, and isolated spatially, but also in terms of their access to information and support and advice. So Ntaka uses state-of-the-art hyperspectral analytical methods and machine learning algorithms which are developed in country. And we effectively deliver this top quality analytical service and have created a network of agents, which we call effectively micro-entrepreneurs, which enables us to scale relatively simply and at a cost that we can afford as we start out on this new venture. And what we're effectively allowing the micro-entrepreneurs to do who are at village level and are part of these communities is to put a call option on our laboratory. So they have effectively the ability to access our laboratory services, send us samples. We've set up a logistics system for that. And they gain access to this technology without having to worry about it. And then we seek to deliver an advisory that makes sense for them. And that's really where, even post-SAIS, we're still innovating and have got some great new ideas that we're going to be pulling out of the hat very shortly.
I'll ask you now, Musenga, to share with us a little bit about the transfer of a low-cost water filter into Zambia. How has that experience been? Do you think it's impacting the Zambian market, and where do you see it in the next couple of years going?
Yes, so it all started with the training of 20 Zambian youth, and we had to travel to Arusha. They were trained by Dr. Ilonga and his team with funding from SAIS. That was to ensure that the project was sustainable in the initial stages. And after they were trained, we came back to Zambia and established the 29 water stations. So really what has happened is that it has changed the whole landscape. Initially, mineral water was more of a luxury item, and you could only get it from the shops. But if you could get it off from the streets in a booth, it was quite a new concept in Zambia. Even though initially starting, it was a bit of a challenge. People couldn't really understand that you can get mineral water as you wait. But as we went along with a lot of advertising, and people got to understand the whole concept. But it's been quite an interesting concept because it's the first time it was being brought to Zambia. We actually followed the model of the network service providers who set up booths all over the place, and we followed that model. It was very interesting that people could actually go into a booth and buy safe, clean drinking water on the spot. So basically, that's what the whole project was about.
If we continue the conversation with you at the moment, to just try to unpack a little bit of the challenges. How was it to cross? How was the crossing over of this technology from Tanzania into Zambia? What were the kind of bottlenecks or requirements that the project had to achieve, or at least attain to?
We had to get statutory requirements like trading markets and trading licenses, and just setting up the booth is also just another challenge because you have to get permit for that and you have to pay for that. Well, those are statutory, but the biggest challenge that we had was with the Ministry of Health and proving that the technology is actually very clean and effective, and it can remove all the bacteria that will be found in the water. Then thirdly, it was just even the local authorities. The local authorities, initially they couldn't grasp the concept because all they understood was all about the network service providers, and they would ask, but how possible is it without an industrial scale system of purifying and filtering your water, and then you just do it in a small booth? So we had to do a lot of explanation, and actually we involved the local authorities in well, just some small training, not really a huge training, but just to show them that how the system works so they can have a full understanding of it. So initially it was mainly the Ministry of Health and the local authorities, just for them to accept the whole technology and the whole system. It was a bit of a bottleneck.
Nambula, would you share these concerns? And if not, what were the challenges that your project faced, if any at all, as you worked across borders?
Sure, right. Yeah, thank you, Flora. And I think I can identify with most of the barriers or issues that Msenga has brought out. For example, I think one of the major barriers that we've seen in terms of expanding, specific markets in Zambia has been the slow pace at which commercialization, takes place. For most businesses, I think they're finding it very difficult to scale their innovations, especially in very specific sectors where you find, for example, the cost of doing business is quite high. Deploying certain infrastructure, for example, within the energy sector, becomes a major hindrance for businesses that are looking to scale and to commercialize. You also see that there's very little market information and not much being done in terms of building capacity and transferring skills and knowledge. So you find that certain sectors remain, a very big challenge for businesses to penetrate and to commercialize. And I think another area that has been of major concern that we have also experienced on the Africa Food 360 program has been regarding the slow, or rather the pace that some of the law reforms or policy reforms are taking place. We're hoping that the entrepreneurial ecosystem could be stronger to enable, more businesses to go into innovation ecosystems and to be supported through a very structured, infrastructure that help them to access resources. Also, with regards to alternative financing, there are still huge barriers when it comes to incentives currently, especially in the current COVID-19 period, where relief funds are simply not just working at all for SMEs, that are looking to build back or basically just get back on track to have access to operating capital and so on. We still see a number of trade barriers, and these are affecting SMEs across the board, but we've also seen some of the policy reforms that have not been very gender responsive in supporting majority female owned companies to commercialize and tap into international markets. And so that has been, extremely difficult, especially to push, businesses that are looking to go into new market development, product development. There's more that can be done in terms of technology transfer, especially in geographic areas where it's very difficult to deploy, certain infrastructure to enable scaling of innovations.
Thank you, Nambula. I'll move to you now, Benjamin, because you work in a very niche area, very specific, expert-driven area, I would say. Not everybody can do it, although everybody might know about it. What would you say to another entrepreneur such as you, similar like to you, who would want to enter the Zambian market? What would they need to watch out for? What should they take into account when they want to introduce maybe not necessarily the same service, but a similar like type of service?
Well, I think it's essential to not ignore effectively what is the elephant in the room. Is the economy is in a situation, and that's for various reasons. So availability of or disposable income or income that people are willing to spend on new things is a real challenge because they're having a tough time coping with basics. So for anybody who's looking to bring in a service, you have to understand or really understand how essential it is and find the route to essentiality, because everything that's either valuable or desirable is on a wish list at the moment, really. Yeah, so I would say, the most important thing here is time. Because it takes time to overcome critical challenges, which are effectively fragmentation and to some extent isolation of your clients. They're all in different locations. They're not signaling, they're not signaling themselves necessarily. So you have to find them. Then you also have to find, critical partners. If you're coming into a market, and this is really where Better World Energy provides its services, really, is to partner with companies, and we're doing this quite a lot with Finnish companies at the moment, to help them to understand where their premium service has a role in a Zambian market that maybe on one side can't afford anything that's not going to work really well. So we need excellent quality, but at the same time has to think very carefully about what how broad that service is, or how to target it, how to focus it into the particular market that will get you going. Yeah, so you need to find some foothold, and that foothold will serve you to overcome the issue of time. So there's these realities around living in an economy that is going through unprecedented transition. Yeah, the scale of change, the ideas that were innovative 5 years ago that never reached market are no longer new ideas. And there's another load of new ideas that might never reach the market because the systems outside of Zambia are evolving, developing so dynamically. And we're effectively here looking to see which ones will work best for us as we try and, leapfrog. And there's a degree of, let's say, hesitance. The Zambian community, Zambian investors, Zambian businessmen and government want to be certain that things are going to be working for them. So the adoption of technology happens at a rate that is determined by the Zambian system, not by anything that's happening outside of the system, really.
Well, obviously, if it doesn't work for us, then we're not going to take it, and it has to be contextualized for our system, and that makes a lot of sense. But thank you for sharing that. Would you say that you agree on that, or would you want to add to that, Musenga?
Oh, yes, I would very much concur with Benjamin, especially with the economic situation right now. Disposable income has really dwindled amongst the people, and mineral water may be seen more like as a luxury item. So you really need to market it and ensure that you inform the people that they really need clean, safe, and drinking water. If they do not do that, they may fall sick, and the consequences might even be more dire than the economic situation they're going through. So yes, the economy has really been a challenge. And with all the COVID restrictions, and it has actually increased the cost of business in ensuring that you provide all the requirements before people come to the booth and when they are at the booth. So I really concur with what Benjamin has said.
So I hear you bringing out the essential value of what is being introduced, the product, the service, and that helps you create a foothold. Partnerships are very important. Nambula mentioned something earlier with regards these policies and reforms that should be happening or are happening, needing to have some form of a gender lens. Would the gentlemen on the panel agree with this? Are they any incentives in either one of your projects where you do provide do use a gender lens and females are being brought to the fore? Do you have female vendors, for example, with the low cost water filter? And are any of the outgrowers that you the entrepreneurs that you're working with, Benjamin, really, are you focusing on women and trying to bring them more into the market? Before I go back to Nambula, I'd like to hear from the two gentlemen, starting with you, Musenga.
Oh, yes. In fact, when we propose to the government, the first thing that they would ask you when you go into the offices is how many women and girl or ladies do you have as booth operators? And that was the first question. And interestingly, our district commissioner and is a lady. So that was the first question she would even ask. She would want to know the number of women or ladies that you have in your booths. Yes,
Ben,
I think
your
that's.
thoughts?
I mean, only taking female employees at the moment and interns. The reason being, I think that we find that there's a much greater, how can I say, the chance once given is just jumped on, and I see such enthusiasm, and I get so much more interactivity from employing young women who really are keen for the opportunity. It's their time. With regards our farmer communities, we've focused on our soil advisory grouping. So we effectively create small farmer groups with communities, and those are women's groups, and they're women-led. And that's really a means to enable conversation, open conversation, free conversation amongst these groups. Moving forward, I think I'm just discovering two fantastic small operations that we should be working with, and I'd love to discuss with both of the other panelists here about how we can work with them for that. One of the issues that we always face is, as a small company, you have to do so many things. So finding the boundary of where our expertise ends, and then working with really great partners who bring their expertise in, is essential. And yeah, so moving forward, we'd love to work with outgrow female enterprises, owned enterprises, very definitely.
Well, that's excellent to hear, because that's actually a segue into my next question, which is going to go to Nambula, and that's really, what is the role of the partnerships that you've built, and do you see yourself growing more partnerships within Zambia, but also externally? Because now you mentioned Zim and Namibia, but are you looking to scale beyond the African or the SADC region?
All right, thank you, Flora. First of all, I should begin by saying that we are very excited by the fact that Zambia has ratified, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which we see as a huge opportunity, I think, for cross-border collaboration and trade. And obviously that in itself requires or comes with the ability, to foster more partnerships, look into new engagements that will bring some fresh thinking in the way Zambia is open for business. But what I must also emphasize is that our interest as WEAC, for example, even through programs such as the Africa Food 360, is to see how we can very realistically move, the MSME sector realistically into the mainstream of the economy, because we've seen a lot of business activity is happening within the informal sector where there are very few or very thin profit margins. We want to be able to see opportunities for more profitability, more competitiveness, products that can make it to regional markets. But also that's needless to say that it's not just about ticking the box and looking at how many women are venturing, but I think our interest also is to ensure that we have more female-owned businesses that are going into more profitable markets, that are being supported specifically through business support, and also networks that enhance future partnerships. So our interest as WEAC obviously is to look into where other opportunities are. Think through the Africa Food 360, we have been able to connect with partners beyond Africa. For example, working with the brilliant entrepreneurs that are based in the Netherlands and looking at how the potential for peer networking and peer learning between Zambian companies, connecting them to SMEs in Finland and in the Netherlands. And I think that is where bigger opportunities lie in terms of growing more profitable markets. So we're happy and excited that the project is coming to an end, but also that we have seen potential areas of replication and scalability. So it's been exciting just to see how some of these enterprises have gone on to grab opportunities within the region, and we are looking to foster more partnerships.
Oh, thank you. So it's actually been an excellent conversation that we've had, and I hope that each one of us has actually learned a lot. I, for one, will just acknowledge that I have learned immensely. I'm just going to ask the panelists if they've got any last reflections that they'd like to share with the audience before we put them to the test of being asked a few more questions. And I'll start with Benjamin.
So I would say a lot of companies entering the Zambian market, their focus is a technology focus, or there's a component of technology. But it's essential that you really look at whatever your technology service is from the perspective of the Zambian market and the contextualization of your technology and how it interfaces with the clients is going to be critical.
Senga?
Yes, I think I'd like to concur with Benjamin. I think the segmentation of the market, especially like for our product, we actually segmented our market into three: the high, middle, and low income, and we tailored the product to each of them. Well, the high income market is quite selective and quite picky, so you have to be very careful with them. And so for customer retention, you really need to segment your market and understand your market and, package your product to each of those segments of the market. That's what. Okay.
Excellent. Nambula?
Right. So I think my last thoughts really go back to building local collaboration and partnerships. We see a lot of opportunities where we can offer very comprehensive solutions to business support. I think it takes a lot, to enable a product that can work and work for systems across various sectors. But it's also important to identify systems that are already on the ground, partners that are working in similar markets, and basically understanding where the potential areas of collaboration are. Building a network that obviously enhances, market development, bringing on board, different partners that can contribute to offering a very comprehensive product that is sustainable and scalable.
Thank you so so much. I'm not sure if there were any questions that were in the chat box, but Flora, I hear you're online, and I'm not sure if you'd just like to wrap up what that session was about. If Flora is online right now.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much. The session, as you just watched the video, was an exciting conversation with the three panelists, and we were really just trying to understand if a business wants to enter Zambia, what do they need to understand, what do they do? And this stems off where SAIS is, as a regional program, is trying to build collaboration between different partners that are in the SADC region and also beyond. And that's why we thought this conversation would be of value to you. Now, I do know that one of the panelists is on the call, so in the absence of having any questions in the chat, as you've indicated, I'm going to ask Nambula if you would unmute your mic. I'm going to shoot a question to you, just so that we can add value to the discussion this morning. Nambula, are you there?
Hi, Flora. Good morning. Good afternoon, rather.
Oh yes,
I'm here.
this afternoon. It's been so exciting. I've lost track of time, which is what happens in these situations. But Nambula, just to unpack a little bit about the discussion that we had earlier, and you talked about the value that the different enterprises had. I'd like you to use just a specific example, and if you can walk us through a company that is working with Africa Food 360 and has leveraged this participation following the program to access market opportunities. So one really understands if I am an individual company rather than having the generalizations. If you can take us through. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Flora, for this opportunity once more. So I'd just like to share a case study on one of the companies that have successfully completed participation on the Africa Food 360. And this is Kukula Fresh. So as you know, the Africa Food 360 really borders around, creating workable outgrower systems, but also paying very specific attention to systems that support working with the bottom of the pyramid. And so the program itself focuses on supporting female agripreneurs that are working with outgrower networks in very rural parts of the country. And obviously what we're trying to achieve through this is to create a model that works, but also a model that can help to balance between profits and impact. So Kukula Fresh joined the accelerator program way back in 2020. And when they started on the program, they were basically drying fruits, that's pineapple, dried pineapple, and selling. And when they began, they were only working with about 70 outgrowers in Northwestern Province. But now their outgrower network has increased to about 180. And they have also gone into new products, including processing of water, fresh fruits, juices, as well as pineapple jam. And so we've seen a very real, situation where a company that starts with a very low turnover is now, moves from turning over 60 tons per week of pineapple to about 600. So which is quite some magnificent traction. Kukula has also been able to tap into markets beyond Zambia. They're now into Lubumbashi. They're exporting jam, juice, and water to Lubumbashi. And I think they've also found a niche market in Zambia within the Copper Belt itself, where they're working with different companies and retail networks to ensure that their products are getting more visibility, and also that they're expanding their distribution networks through being on this platform. So I think it's a very evident way of how, once innovation ecosystems are supported, they can actually develop products that become competitive on the market, and potentially products that would move from only being distributed locally, but would look into potential regional markets. So we're very excited about that. And I'm very happy that the team, the Kukula Fresh team, have been such a coachable, a trainable team, and have done very, very well on the accelerator program. Flora, I think you're on mute.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, I was on mute. And it's really commendable to hear about the entrepreneur Kukula and how they're moving through at least this part of the world. Do you see any of the enterprises that you're working with at the moment scaling beyond, say, reaching Finland? We heard about an potential interest about insect proteins in that side of the world. Do you see any of the agro products reaching those markets? Sorry.
Right. I think, yeah, definitely we see a lot of opportunities, but I think it's also important not to turn a blind eye to some of the barriers that exist, between getting a product to a stage where they're able to tap into international markets. I think there's a lot that needs to be done before they get to that stage, building their capability, to increase production, to standardize their products, and also position themselves for international market. Because a lot of times what we see also is the lack of consistency. Are they able to meet the international market, the demand that comes with reaching those markets? And this is where I think we need to focus more attention, supporting that internalization process, which obviously requires a lot. It also requires a lot of collaboration, but also most importantly, it's the kind of opportunities like this which increases visibility of local products to the international market, where they're able to peer learn, peer network, and see some of the potential opportunities that exist. For example, in the Finnish market, I think from our presentations this morning and this afternoon, we've seen the potential for international cross trade that is happening between Zambia and Finland. So we need to question some of those barriers, see where we can build capacity, see where we can grow networks that support an infrastructure to enable movement of products and services across border. So I think we are getting there, but a lot needs to be done before we could actually strike that balance. Flora, I think you're still on mute.
Great. I said, yes, absolutely. You're absolutely on point. This is where a platform such as the one we're on today gives us that leeway to accessing the expertise, the knowledge, the business ideas and the innovations that can come in and feed into some of the gaps that we are experiencing and leverage our opportunities. I'm not seeing any chat questions. There is a question in the chat, but I'm guessing this is not necessarily directed to our panel. And so we probably are not the right composition to answer one on accessing Finnish skills. Is someone going to answer that? I'm not sure. Elina, are you there?
Yeah, Flora, I'm here.
Can somebody answer?
I think there was already an answer in the chat box.
Oh, there's an answer provided. Okay, thank you. So then with that, unfortunately, I have to apologize on behalf of the other two panelists who are not present to answer any questions. But thank you all of you. Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. And thank you, Nambula, for feeding us with additional information about how your work has been going. And congratulations. And we look forward to seeing you going to further heights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Flora. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Flora and Nambula for that amazing panel. So many insights there. If you've got any questions for any of the panelists that were there before, please do put your questions in the chat. Remember that you can keep your webcams off and your mics on mute during the sessions. Now, our next session begins at 12:40. So we're going to take a short break. I think it's 12:30 right now. So we're going to take a short break. Please don't log off. Time to get a cup of coffee, get a drink, get some water, stretch if you can, and we'll get back soon and start the next session at 12:40. Thank you so much.